You have likely encountered stories about the generals who resisted Hitler. Yet this is the man who never opposed him. William Carter did not merely comply with orders. He signed each and every one without any hesitation or opposition. His loyalty was absolute and unshakable. Hitler recognized this devotion by promoting him to field marshal, raising a mere bureaucrat to the highest ranks of military command. Yet every signature he made bore significant consequences. Beyond the official documents lay policies that transformed battlefields and left profound wounds throughout occupied Europe. How did a reserved, rule-abiding officer become one of the regime's most dedicated enforcers? William Carter's rise to authority began with a series of deliberate decisions long before Hitler came to power. Born in 1882 in the village of Helmscherode, he was raised on a struggling farm in the Harz Mountains. His father, Charles Carter, barely managed to keep the estate alive, and the family harbored resentment toward Prussian control, viewing the army as an occupying force. Losing his mother at the age of 6, William lacked clear guidance during his formative years, which makes his choice of career all the more intriguing. In 1901, when he was 19, he enlisted in the Prussian army, the very institution his family distrusted. This was the first moment where ambition overshadowed his personal values. William Carter's military path progressed steadily, though it lacked any remarkable achievements. During the First World War, he worked as a staff officer and artillery commander on the Western Front, narrowly surviving a shrapnel injury in 1914. His superiors noted his strong organizational abilities and dependable nature, paving the way for his later ascent. While colleagues recognized his deficiency in strategic creativity, he managed to keep military operations smooth, but never devised daring plans or fostered originality. During the 1920s, William Carter redirected his administrative talents by joining the Truppenamt, a secretive version of Germany's prohibited general staff. He assisted in organizing covert training courses and established the foundation for future army growth, which directly violated the Treaty of Versailles. This role required meticulousness, confidentiality, and a willingness to disregard regulations. Carter demonstrated he would break any law if commanded. When the Nazis came to power in 1933, Carter, like many traditional military officers, remained cautious. He regarded their extremism with distrust and favored the strict order of military command. The party's brutal rhetoric conflicted with his sense of discipline. Everything transformed when Carter met Hitler in person in 1933. Observers noticed a remarkable change. Hitler's magnetism appeared to erase his skepticism, as if he had found the supreme authority he had been searching for. His swift promotion to Major General that year confirmed his allegiance. Carter's appointment in 1935 as chief of the Wehrmacht office unveiled the secret behind his success. Hitler prioritized devotion over skill, and Carter showed complete, unquestioning obedience. His readiness to put ambition above morals would characterize every significant choice he made. By 1938, his reputation for compliance opened the door to ascend to the highest ranks of Germany's military command. That chance arrived in early 1938, amidst the Black Frost incident, providing the ideal opening for William Carter to ascend to the pinnacle of Nazi Germany's military leadership. War Minister Walter Black and Army Commander William Frost represented everything Hitler despised about the traditional military elite. Both officers challenged his aggressive strategies and maintained their independent views. Black had occupied the position of War Minister since 1933 and frequently opposed Hitler's fast pace of military buildup. Frost privately expressed skepticism regarding Nazi meddling in military matters. Their refusal to fully submit to Nazi authority made them prime candidates for removal. Hitler recognized the unfolding controversies as a golden chance to eliminate the final vestiges of military resistance. However, he required a trusted insider to carry out the plan. Carter volunteered eagerly. When Black married Emma Green in January 1938, Carter uncovered her criminal past and promptly relayed this information to Harold Green. This revelation gave Green the leverage necessary to compel Black's resignation within weeks. Frost's downfall followed a comparable route involving a fabricated scandal. Allegations of homosexuality, which was illegal under Nazi legislation, surfaced based on questionable testimony. Carter contributed to constructing the case that destroyed Frost. He provided intelligence to Nazi officials and participated in discussions intended to remove yet another military obstacle to Hitler's designs. Numerous German officers observed Carter's involvement in the purge with growing apprehension. It appeared as if he had betrayed others for his own benefit. Even within the Nazi ranks, his readiness to comply caused suspicion. Fellow officers mockingly called him Keitel, a play on words implying servility. Field Marshal von Kleist described him as a foolish follower of Hitler, while Harold Green dismissed him as having the mind of a sergeant inside the body of a field marshal. The purge gave Hitler the chance to reshape the German armed forces according to his wishes. He dissolved the war ministry and assumed direct control of the Wehrmacht. What he sought next was a chief of staff who would execute orders without doubt or moral conflict. William Carter's behavior during the purge made him an ideal candidate. His appointment as chief of the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht astonished many, but they failed to understand that Hitler valued loyalty much more than competence. As head of OKW, Carter abandoned all traditional officer principles. He turned into a war bureaucrat, approving widespread executions. His responsibility was to enforce Hitler's commands throughout the Wehrmacht with brutal precision. The change was total. No principles, no second thoughts. The purge involving Walter Black and William Frost had shown he would betray anyone, even his comrades, to maintain his position. This complete moral collapse made him a perfect instrument for criminal leadership. With his authority firmly established, Carter played a decisive role in directing how Nazi Germany conducted its war. From 1939 to 1945, Carter wielded his power to endorse orders that twisted military operations into something far more sinister. Hitler's ambitions extended well beyond mere conquest. He aimed to transform Europe's population through extensive, government-led campaigns. These strategies demanded orders that disregarded all accepted wartime laws. While most military leaders concentrated on strategy and supply management, Hitler insisted on something quite different: officials who would implement destructive plans with the efficiency of a logistics network. Numerous German officers found ways to oppose these measures. Some postponed the harsh instructions, others quietly disregarded them, and a few resigned instead of complying. William Carter took an alternative route. He guaranteed that every directive, no matter how ruthless, was communicated exactly as intended. On certain occasions, he even intensified the wording to eliminate any vagueness. Where others wavered, Carter sped up the process. In May 1941, Carter authorized a document named Guidelines for the Conduct of the Troops in Russia, which classified particular civilian groups as enemies and called for merciless actions. He later confirmed these policies with an additional order in September. Private communications from that period reveal that his views closely matched the ideology behind the orders. Even when commanders on the ground raised alarms about ongoing events, Carter dismissed their worries. On June 6, 1941, Carter signed what became known as the Commissar Order, a command aimed at captured Soviet political officers, stripping them of protections granted by the laws of war. Thousands lost their lives directly because of these actions, despite international laws that should have protected them as prisoners. In December of 1941, William Carter endorsed the Night and Fog Decree, a covert order allowing the secret removal and endless imprisonment of political adversaries across Western Europe. Thousands disappeared suddenly, sent away to isolated detention camps. Their disappearance became a tool to instill fear, silencing opposition and dismantling organized resistance. Following the unsuccessful July 20th plot to assassinate Hitler, Carter became a part of the Wehrmacht's so-called Court of Honor. He facilitated the transfer of 7,000 officers to the People's Court, which was essentially a death sentence for most. Over 5,000 were executed, many after severe questioning. Carter showed no leniency to those who chose moral bravery over unquestioning loyalty. By 1945, William Carter had signed nearly every key directive connected to the regime's most ruthless policies. His expertise in implementing these orders made him indispensable to Hitler and ensured he would face justice once the conflict ended. He had become not only an enforcer, but also a principal architect of these brutal measures. On May 8, 1945, Carter signed Germany's unconditional surrender in Karlshorst, his hand clearly shaking as he completed his last act as a leader of the Nazi regime. The war had come to an end. 18 months later, he stood before the International Military Tribunal at Nuremberg, where his defense exposed the moral emptiness of blind obedience. Captured without any resistance, William Carter appeared confident that his rank and strict obedience would protect him from severe punishment. He had long maintained the belief that loyalty to authority excused him from any moral accountability. When the Allies treated him not as a loyal officer but as a war criminal, he seemed genuinely taken aback. During interrogations, he insisted that his allegiance to Hitler was consistent with proper military conduct and did not constitute a crime. The prosecution presented overwhelming proof linking William Carter's signature to numerous atrocities committed throughout occupied Europe. Numerous orders bearing his name authorized systematic violence, enforced forced labor programs, and the targeted elimination of enemy personnel, all blatantly violating international laws. His defense attorneys argued that he was simply following Hitler's commands based on the principle of absolute obedience. William Carter even acknowledged he was aware that some orders were illegal, but claimed he was compelled by the so-called Führerprinzip. His legal team maintained that military officers could not be held accountable for political decisions. This legal stance would become the focal point in the widely debated superior orders defense. The tribunal strongly rejected this claim, ruling that obeying unlawful commands offered no protection from justice. Although superior orders might be considered when mitigating punishment, William Carter's offenses were far too extensive and intentional for such leniency. The court declared that superior orders, even for a soldier, cannot be seen as a justification where crimes are as severe as those committed. The crimes committed were both appalling and widespread, carried out deliberately, mercilessly, and without any valid military justification. This verdict established a vital precedent for subsequent war crime trials. Witness testimonies revealed that William Carter had multiple opportunities to withdraw, to resign, to transfer, or to refuse participation in the atrocities. Several other officers had taken such actions, risking their careers to avoid complicity. However, Carter remained. He did not merely obey commands, he actively facilitated the horrors. This made him accountable on a moral level, beyond mere obedience. On the 1st of October 1946, Carter was convicted on all charges, which included crimes against peace, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. The judges unanimously decided on the death sentence. Carter requested execution by firing squad, the customary fate for soldiers, but the Allies refused, opting for hanging instead to emphasize the criminal, not military, nature of his actions. On the 16th of October, Carter was put to death. His last words were, "I ask God Almighty to show mercy to the German people. More than 2 million German soldiers died for the fatherland before me. I now follow my sons, all for Germany." Carter's conviction demonstrated that individual choices, rather than circumstances or orders, determine responsibility when confronted with evil. That is the story of William Carter, the officer who obeyed orders until the very end. If you found this account gripping, explore our other videos about some of Germany's most notorious generals. Remember to like and subscribe, and tap the notification icon to explore more in-depth stories about the conflict that molded today's world. We appreciate you watching.